Everyone opened a Christmas gift except me. My mother looked around at the shredded paper, laughed, and said, "Oh, we forgot yours." I smiled. "It's okay. I already bought myself something." Being forgotten was normal in my family. My older brother Dylan was the golden child. At 16, he got a car. When I asked for $500 for an advanced programming course, my parents said money didn't grow on trees. At my graduation dinner, Dad toasted Dylan for getting into Stanford. Mom told everyone they were encouraging Leah to find stable work. My uncle joked that his restaurant needed dishwashers. Everyone laughed. What they didn't know was that I had already earned a full scholarship to a technology program in New York. I left Seattle, graduated with honors, and joined a cybersecurity company. A few years later, I led a major banking integration, and the bonus helped me buy a 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. My family knew almost none of this because they never asked. Then, after years of barely speaking, my cousin Rachel called. My parents wanted me home for Christmas. I went back to see whether anything had changed. It hadn't. Dylan joked that I was probably still hiding behind a computer. Mom said my old bedroom was his office so I could sleep on the couch. One aunt asked whether I was still doing that computer thing. An uncle reminded me his dishwasher job was still open. "I work in software," I kept saying. No one asked what kind. At dinner, Dylan announced he wanted $150,000 to launch a restaurant delivery startup. Dad immediately started talking about mortgaging the house. "We've always believed in you, son." I remembered that $500 programming course and stared at my plate. Later, while everyone gathered around the tree, Mom handed me a stack of dirty dishes. "Help a little, would you?" So I stood in the kitchen rinsing plates while Dylan opened gifts in the next room. That was when it clicked. I had spent years telling myself my family simply didn't understand me. Maybe I was quiet, maybe tech sounded boring. But they had assigned me a role, and even after years away, they expected me to step right back into it. When I finished, everyone was surrounded by wrapping paper. Mom had a necklace, Dad had a sweater, Dylan and his wife had a pile of gifts. The bag I brought was still beside my suitcase. Dylan looked over. "Did you bring anything for the family after disappearing for so long?" Yes. I handed out my gifts. A scarf for Mom, a navigation book for Dad, a handmade mobile for Dylan's baby, and smaller gifts for the others. Then Dad checked his watch. "Well, I think that's everything." "Nothing for me," Mom laughed. "Oh, we forgot to give you yours." Nobody even seemed embarrassed. I didn't argue. I took out my phone. "It's okay. Look what I gave myself." I opened the photos of my apartment. The room went quiet. Mom leaned toward the screen. "That's yours?" "Yes." "You rent that?" Dylan asked. "I bought it." He laughed. "So you're buried in debt?" "Not really. I paid for most of it up front." Dad looked at me. "With what?" "A bonus from a banking security integration I led last year." For the first time all night, someone asked what I actually did. I explained that my team built authentication systems used by major financial clients, just the job they had spent years reducing to computer stuff. My uncle Roberto stared at me. "My nephew works in cybersecurity," he said. "I think he's mentioned your work." Dylan stopped smiling. Dad frowned. "You lead the team?" "Yes." Mom looked confused. "Why didn't you tell us any of this?" "You never asked." Nobody had a response. A few minutes later, Mom said Dylan could sleep on the couch and I could take my old room. "But now we know how important your work is." I shook my head. "I was important before you knew." I slept on the couch anyway. The next morning was different. Dad poured me coffee. Dylan asked about security for his startup. Mom admitted his achievements had been easier for them to understand. It didn't erase years of being ignored, but I hadn't come back to beg for an apology. Before I left, Dad handed me a badly wrapped package. Inside was an old photo of me at 16 beside the computer program I had entered in a school science fair. No one from my family had attended that day. I took the photo home. A few days later, Mom emailed me. They were clearing Dylan's office out of my old bedroom so I would have somewhere to stay if I visited again. "What color should we paint it?" I stared at the message before replying. "Mint green." Then I put the science fair photo on my bookshelf beside the life I had built while nobody was watching.